All right, The Dark Horizon is officially out. I had some time on it, about 10 hours or so across 2 playthroughs in the adventure mode, and of course the new boss rush mode I got to check out as well. So I wanted to give you guys the details on my experience and if the final DLC of Remnant 2 is worth playing or not. Let's get into it. You heard that right. There is a boss rush mode in Remnant 2, and not just one mode. There are 3 modes within it. You have Triple Threat, which you fight 3 bosses. You have Trial by Fire, which is 7 bosses, including Annihilation. Remember that boss? Yeah, I'm sure you do. And then finally, the Gauntlet, which has 19 bosses, including our friend Annihilation as well. So some challenging modes here, depending on what you want to run through. And I tried the Triple Threat just to kind of get a grasp on how this thing works. I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the roguelike feature of it, where when you beat a boss or you beat an area even within the boss rush, you get a chance to select from 3 skills or bonuses, and depending on what's important to you or what kind of build you're trying to run through this boss rush, you can select between 3 choices. I appreciate the bonuses. I think it adds more flavor to the boss rush. It gives it this kind of roguelike feature to it if you're into that. I'm not the biggest rogue fan, but in this type of situation for boss rushes, I think it's welcomed. I think it's great. I feel like the developers at Gunfire Games really went all out with giving us more tools and more skills. And it doesn't just stop here with the boss rush, it translates into the rest of the DLC as well, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to say boss rush was pretty damn awesome. I was actually able to fight the Red Prince, finally. I have never met this boss, and I've been wanting to across all my playthroughs. I just kept missing him. So I was more than excited to finally fight this boss. And then of course, after I beat him, I'm met with another skill that I can choose, and so on and so forth, rinse and repeat. That's how it goes. You beat a boss, you get a skill, and then you continue on. So it's pretty fun, it's pretty interesting. I think it's definitely worth checking out. As for the rest of the DLC and the big meat and potatoes, we are again in a familiar area of Neyrud. It's become more vertical and it's become very disjointed. It's become very separated. So now we get to use this glider, which is new, and you should expect to use it multiple times to get around. It's pretty interesting using the glider. I think it works well. It fits into this universe. I think it feels nice and it's fun to use, honestly. And it does help, of course, with traversal and trying not to get lost. But I will say it's still easy to kind of get lost and not know what the heck I'm doing. But at least the glider makes it a little bit more easier. The map definitely helps with that. So paying attention to that map, figuring out where to go to progress, and listening to the NPCs kind of give you clues on the story and what to do is very important in this DLC, probably more than ever. And all of this traversing and moving around this area leads up to the final boss, which I felt was a pretty damn good challenge and was a great boss. However, my only issue was the lack of other bosses. During my first playthrough, I did find a different boss along the way, which I thought was great. But besides that boss, there was just a few mini bosses and then that was it. There wasn't too much more beyond that. There was a couple puzzles, a couple traversal type things I had to go through, which was fun, don't get me wrong, but I just felt there was this lacking of bosses. And then when I played the second playthrough, and as we all know, Remnant 2 is procedurally generated, so keep that in mind. But during this second playthrough, when I re-rolled adventure mode, I actually found bosses that I beat well before this DLC. Do you guys remember the hatchery? Of course you do. I found myself there again and I was thinking, wait, did I sneak into the original game somehow? Am I off course? But no, I wasn't. It still led up to the final DLC boss. So that, you know, is one of those things where I would prefer not to fight older bosses, but it just happened to happen that way. And it gets to that final boss, it gets through my progression, it takes me where I need to go, but I was a bit disappointed to not find more new bosses. I will keep trying though. I'll run through another time and see if that can change, But as of right now, I can't really report on too many new bosses, and that in itself is a bit disappointing. And because of that, I would say this is probably the weakest of all the DLC expansions. I just think the others did it better when it came to the puzzles and the bosses and the dungeons themselves. That doesn't mean it's a bad DLC, it's just kind of lacking in that department. However, I do feel it does make up for that with everything else it has to offer. We talked about boss rush already, which was something that is desired. I know I always want a boss rush when it comes to these games, and so I'm glad they listened to that. There's also some new boosters and new perks that they've added called prisms. And these are pretty awesome because as I was playing, I was acquiring these boosts along the way. I was getting things like skill damage, reload speeds, stamina boosters, so on and so forth. Things like that that can help my build and separate it probably from someone else. So they definitely did a lot to encourage us to switch up our builds a bit. They've also added new rings, and a bunch of them at that. There's so many of them to find, which is awesome. There's also new amulets as well, which I'm a big fan of. One of them I found is actually giving me infinite ammo reserves, which you can tell by my gameplay. I don't ever have to pick up ammo, which is pretty damn awesome. So clearly the developers are just throwing stuff at us like, here's some stuff to make it even more fun. Here's some stuff to make your character even more powerful. So it's incentive even to go to a higher difficulty, because I feel like these new prisms and these new buffs and perks give you more to work with and balance out that gameplay even more as you take on a higher difficulty. There's also the new archetype, which is called the Warden, and I use a drone with my character now, which is pretty sick. So I have my dog and my drone. And I don't know if that's overkill or it's gonna become that, but just starting out with it, it's giving me some shield power. As you can see, the drone will attach shield to my character. That way when I am shot at or I'm attacked, it does prevent me from losing my health for a while. So it's there to kind of protect you and serve you and help you in combat. As you level up the Warden archetype, you will get these other perks as you go, and so the drone is really there to help out a lot. And then, of course, like I said, I have my dog too, who will revive me if I go down. So, you know, it's just more incentive to play at a higher difficulty, and I appreciate that. I think that's great. So yeah, clearly the developers at Gunfire Games really went all out in giving us a lot of tools and perks to just playing through this game again. Although I would prefer a little bit more variety in the areas and maybe more beyond Neyrud, it's still a good, solid DLC. And if you're a fan of Neyrud and even the hatchery and all these other places within it, you're going to be very happy. It's expanded, it's vertical now, there's all these different areas you can glide to, which is fun in itself. I just wish there was a bit more bosses and just a bit more when it comes to the dungeons. But other than that, I thought it was solid and definitely worth playing. If you're a fan of Remnant, there's really no excuse, man. Definitely play this DLC. Play all of them. Play the entire game. It's such a great game. This was my game of the year of 2023. So the fact that I got 3 DLCs on top of it is just incredible. And I'm so thankful I was able to experience this DLC so that way I can report back to you guys and give you my blessing to go ahead and play this thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think. If you're picking up this DLC, let me know in the comment section. Other than that, I'm out of here, you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.